Now let's take a look at the system users, the DBA users, the administration users. The system user is slightly lower level than the sys user. System is a DBA, he gets to create users and do all sorts of things with the metadata and the structure of the database. The sys user has a little bit more power. He can get into the database without a password on the server itself, without connecting. He uses what's called a bequeath protocol, and a bequeath connection connects automatically. He can actually shut down and start the database. You need a very basic user to get into the database when you have a real problem with it. So the best thing to do is always to connect to system when you're doing DBA work, or a DBA user that's created by the DBA with the DBA privilege. The next best thing is the system user, which has complete access to everything. And obviously the really dangerous one is the sys user, where you log in as sysdba or sysopper, which is a special type of administrator privilege that uses a password authentication and or validation from a file stored in the operating system. The system password is actually stored in the Oracle database. The sys password is stored outside the Oracle database. So it means that if your system has crashed, you cannot log into system, but you probably will be able to log into sys. You would hope so anyway. If you can't log into sys, you've got a big problem. Generally what you do is you connect as sysdba. Now you've actually seen me connecting where I say SQL plus leave a space front slash leave a space as sysdba. That means I'm connecting directly through the operating system into the database without using the TNS connection string, straight to the database using a special password file that's stored in the Oracle installation. We don't need to go into the details of where that is or what's in it, because this is really actually an intermediate course on SQL and PLSQL and not real fundamental operating system administration. But in the previous course I did go through some details of installation, so you should recall that from there. As I said, it uses a password file stored in the operating system, allowing you to get access to the database when it's actually down and or crashed or inaccessible in any other way. Basically, the privileges applied to system and sys user are all system privileges, everything, as well as object privileges. But it's important to understand the difference between system and everybody else. This gets the metadata, everybody else gets to things that are not metadata, such as data or stuff they've created themselves, their own metadata. Sys gets access to everything that system and everybody else has, except that it also gets access to the database when it's inaccessible, using a process of authentication through the operating system with a password, encrypted password file stored in the operating system. The password is not stored inside Oracle. That's the difference between system and sys. If we wanted to look at a set of tasks, if you like, that the different users would do, well, first of all, the feature and application related users would work with features, and the related users would work with their particular schemas, whatever they're doing in them. Now, what I want to do is start up SQL Developer again in a minute, and we'll show you some feature application users. The sys user will be used to do things like import and export data, although you can import and export with systems. So I would probably be inclined to actually put this one in this category down here. Oracle Database has three modes. One is called unmounted, the next one is called mounted, and the third one is called open. In fact, there's four modes. There's closed as well. Closed is completely inaccessible. Unmounted means what's happened is that the Oracle processes have been created on the server, on the database server, and memory has been allocated on the server. In mounted mode, it mounts what's called the control file. The control file is a bunch of pointers that hooks together all the redo logs, archive log files, and the data files. So it basically sets the physical database up, although you can't get at the database. Typically in mounted mode, database recovery is performed. Nobody else can connect to the database other than the sys user. A lot of other things are done in mounted mode, such as working with archive logs, because of the way the pointers and the control file works. When you open the database, it becomes accessible to everybody in that all users can actually access what they're allowed to access. Sys is mainly for recovery, starting up and shut down, some really critical things. Also when you can't get at the database, such as in recovery mode. The system user, you do main primary system stuff such as creating users, changing passwords, importing and exporting data, assigning system privileges to roles, and whatever. This is an excerpt from elsewhere. Assigning system privileges to roles, monitoring database activity and performance in tools such as Oracle Enterprise Manager, and Spotlight also is a big tool that used to be used, and also actually going into the statistics inside the Oracle database and examining those stats there. Stats packs and older version of that. You can adjust the database parameters as the system user. However, some Oracle database configuration parameters have to be adjusted with the database either mounted or definitely not open, inaccessible to the general population, and thus they should be changed in sys mode because you can't connect to system. You can add more space to a database as well. The last thing I want to show you in here is if I go into the system user, let's get rid of this junky box here. I want to show you feature users quickly when it actually connects, which takes a while. Select user from DBA users, order by user name. Run this. What do we get? We get, interesting, a whole lot of duplication. No, okay. I typed this wrong. This is an interesting error. I said select user from, essentially from dual. I should have. I've gone into the context and found the connected user and applied it to every entry that comes out of this particular query. CTX sys, that's a feature user. DBSNMP is a feature user. A lot of these are mine. EXF sys, anything called sys, a feature user. There's a lot of them in there. You can go through them if you want. Anyway, that's enough for now.